G001. What you get is a PDF about Bitcoin.
This is from the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network.
Yes. So, and the subject is dated March 13th, Monday. Application of they call it FinCEN, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. So application of regulations to persons administering, exchanging, or using virtual currencies. So,
they're calling for a crackdown?
No, the good news is we're okay. And that's why this is amazing. There's been grumblings in Congress. Various random representatives and senators have said, we need to outlaw this crazy thing. So they define a user of in sort of a summary at the top, it says a user of virtual currency is not, it's bold italics, what they call an MSB, and they later define MSB as meaning money services business, which is subject to regulation. So they say a user of virtual currency is not an MSB under FinCEN's regulations and therefore is not subject to MSB registration, reporting, and record-keeping regulations.
But somebody like Mt. Gox, which is an exchange, would be.
Yes. So they're saying FinCEN's regulations define currency, also referred to as real currency, as, quote, the coin and paper money of the United States or of any other country that one, is designated as legal tender, and that 2, circulates, and 3, is customarily used and accepted as a medium of exchange in the country of issuance. In contrast to real currency, virtual, in quotes, currency is a medium of exchange that operates like a currency in some environments, but does not have all the attributes of real currency. In particular, virtual currency does not have legal tender status in any jurisdiction. This guidance addresses convertible virtual currency. This type of virtual currency either has an equivalent value in real currency or acts as a substitute for real currency. And I'm skipping way down because I highlighted the things I wanted to share where they're explaining. They say this guidance refers to the participants in generic virtual currency arrangements using the terms user, exchanger, and administrator. A user is a person that obtains virtual currency to purchase goods or services. An exchanger is a person engaged as a business in the exchange of virtual currency for real currency, funds, or other virtual currency. An administrator is a person engaged as a business in issuing, that is, putting into circulation, a virtual currency, and who has the authority to redeem, to withdraw from circulation, such virtual currency. And then under users of virtual currency, they said a user who obtains convertible virtual currency and uses it to purchase real or virtual goods or services is not, again, bold italics, an MSB under FinCEN's regulations. So that's more good news. Such activity, they say, in and of itself does not fit within the definition of, quote, money transmission services. So that's the key phrase that they look for, and therefore is not subject to FinCEN's registration, reporting, and record-keeping regulations for MSBs. And then lastly, under e-currencies and e-precious metals. I didn't know what an e-precious metal was. I guess there's a market, an electronic market for that. But they said the first type of activity involves electronic trading in e-currencies or e-precious metals. And they say in 2008, FinCEN issued guidance stating that as long as a broker or dealer in real currency or other commodities accepts and transmits funds solely for the purpose of effecting a bona fide purchase or sale of the real currency or other commodities for or with a customer, such person is not acting as a money transmitter under the regulations. And actually, there's one last thing I forgot. Under decentralized virtual currencies, they're leaving no doubt here. They said a final type of convertible virtual currency activity involves a decentralized convertible virtual currency, one that has no central repository and no single administrator, and two, that persons may obtain by their own computing or manufacturing effort. A person that creates units of this convertible virtual currency and uses it to purchase real or virtual goods and services is a user of the convertible virtual currency and not subject to regulation as a money transmitter. So for we end users of Bitcoin, there is no longer any gray area at all. The Department of Treasury, United States Department of Treasury, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network says we're doing nothing wrong. I saw this, and I also thought I highlighted it. I'm going to send the PDF off to Mark Thompson because, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, he's experimenting with taking Bitcoin in exchange for physical goods, and for anyone who's interested in or has Bitcoins or wants to mine Bitcoins and wonders about the legalities of what they end up doing with them, this makes it clear. We're okay.
The only thing that bothers me a little bit about Bitcoin is I'm just used to the notion that money is tied to some sort of creation or physical, doing something. And Bitcoin's really just tied to how many CPUs and GPUs you want to put in series.
Well, okay, we of course we famously went off the gold standard when money
so
was
it's not tied to gold either, is it? Yeah.
And U.S. currency is tied to nothing. It's created out of thin air.
Initially, but there's something going on for me to get money from an advertiser, for instance. We do something.
Well, just agreement, Leo. That's all it is.
Well, the actual value of it is by agreement, but it has a natural life because we agree what something is worth. By consensus. I don't know. It feels like there's something missing in Bitcoin that. Well, all you have to do is run a giant server farm, and you can have as much money as you want. That doesn't seem quite right to me.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that puts money into circulation, Bitcoinage into circulation. What is so elegant, and we really nailed this in our Bitcoin podcast. So anybody who hasn't yet heard the Bitcoin podcast, let me commend everyone to go back and listen to it because you'll get this. Yeah. But it's so elegant is independent of how much effort people put into mining. We already know today, yesterday, and tomorrow the rate at which new Bitcoins come into the realm.
Right. So really those Bitcoin computers are just like the printers at the Treasury. They're just creating the currency, which we will then determine the value of by trading.
And think
just
of it
as we
this
do
way.
with dollars.
Think of it this way: the more printers there are, the slower they run.
Right. So that's naturally gated. Right. So, and there will be a maximum amount of coinage reached in a few years, and that'll be that.
In 2040 or I think it's 2040, it hits like. It stops. It's already slowing down, and it's following a curve. And so the rate at which new Bitcoins are being minted is following a trajectory that is absolutely set.
Right.
Nothing can change it.
Right.
And we will then end up with the internet, the world will have a cryptographically strong, tradable virtual currency, and people will be buying and selling using it just like any other currency.
And currently, a Bitcoin's worth $63.98 on Mt. Gox.
Woo-hoo! And I've got 50 of them. So,
yeah, but it's really an interest. I think it's starting to gather critical mass. That's why it's of interest. It's no longer just kind of an academic exercise. It seems to actually be gaining. You can buy pizza with it. God knows you can buy drugs with it.
My computer made $3,000. It paid for itself and a few other machines.
Right.
Just like overnight, I woke up one morning and I happened to check, and there was 50 Bitcoin. It's like, hey, I like this.
Yeah.
Now, that was a long time ago when it was, and it is a statistical thing. So the chances today of that happening again are ridiculously, vanishingly small.
Yeah.
So
that's the other thing that bothers me. But but all currencies are essentially, unless they're tied to something like gold, something of actual value, they're all Ponzi schemes. They're all pyramid schemes. You just have to get in early.
Well, and the problem, the argument for releasing the dollar, the U.S. dollar from the gold standard, of course, was that our economy was inherently creating new wealth.
Right.
We were actually creating new value. We needed money at the same, to be brought into the economy at the same rate that actual new value was being created. And so rather than like ridiculously inflating the cost of gold, we disconnected it so that it's like we could money could track the actual creation of wealth, so it was pretty much at parity.
So you don't need to be a Bitcoin miner. At some point, Bitcoins will be exchanged for goods and services in a free fashion, and then it's a true currency. The miners are merely putting the currency into production in a way that's frankly more rational than the Federal Reserve Bank printing something.
Yes, you could argue that it is less prone to, it absolutely tamper resistant. The technology doesn't allow tampering, and the crazy mining people, what they're doing is they're saying, okay, it's harder to make Bitcoins today than it was, so I want to compete with the other crazy people. So the idea is the more hashes you can produce, the more remember that the way this works is it's the number of leading 0 bits in the hash. And so the requirement is changing in the way that in the guesses you make to perform the hash of a chain in order to find the result that gives you all zeros at the front of the hash. So what's happened is among the miners, there has been this crazy escalation in performance, but the Bitcoin technology has immediately reacted by making them work much harder than if this escalation hadn't happened. So now, in fact, now what we're seeing is mining pools. It's so difficult to actually get physical Bitcoins yourself that people pool their resources, and if anyone in the pool scores a Bitcoin, that Bitcoin is divvied up based on their relative the computing contribution to the pool. So I mean, it's really been a very clever evolution over time, and as you say, Leo, I think it is ultimately, I mean, it's a phenomenon that the Treasury Department has just blessed. Essentially, they've said we have no problem with this.
Now there are other competitors like Litecoin, but that's okay. There can be other coins. Is what first of all, Security Now 287. We explained the cryptographic standard behind Bitcoin. So you go back to 287 and listen to that one. And there's a book which I am about to read. I haven't read it yet, but it's been on my Audible list for some time, called The End of Money, that talks about this whole notion. And money is just an agreed thing. It's not, there's no inherent value. So I find it fascinating and somewhat unsettling, but I guess as with many modernisms, we'll get used to it. And I could see this becoming an accepted standard, not eliminating greenbacks or euros or anything else, but supplementing it.
Well, and
I won't be able to pay my taxes in Bitcoin, I don't think, in my lifetime. But
at some point, because it's inherently virtual, it may be less prone to manipulation than physical currency, which is sort of trying to straddle the virtual, the virtual internet world.
Right. We have seen peaks and valleys in value, however.
Yeah, I mean, there have been
crashes.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know that it was at 63. That's great. I'm holding on to mine.
I would hold on. It's only going to get more valuable.
I think so. Well, because they're not going to make any more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, what may have to happen, Leo, is that there will be, once it stops, then there will be only this much Bitcoin, and it will have a value.
Which, by the way, eliminates inflation.
Yes.
I think, if I understand how all this stuff works.
Yep.
There's a big payments conference going on right now. And Al Gore, apparently, according to the chat room today, said he's all in favor of Bitcoin. He says, I'm a fan of Bitcoin at the payments conference today. So, wow.
Just the technology is solid. We have just one more really interesting thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you introduced me to Bitcoin, and I'm going to keep on you on this.
Read that book. Read that book.
I am. Have you read it?
I'll bet you can. No, I haven't.
Yeah, I can't wait. I downloaded it months ago, and I just haven't gotten around to.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
You got a few things going on.
Yeah. I keep reading. I do fiction, nonfiction, and I happen to pick a 48-hour book. Actually, it was 2 books, so it's more like 100 hours. But I'm almost done.
Okay, now I got bad news.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's really bad.
What? Let me scroll down and see.
I created a Bitly shortcut.
Okay.
The Bitly shortcut is Interscan.
Okay.
bit.ly